Sesame Street, an American educational television show aimed at preschoolers, debuted on November 10, 1969 and quickly became the most popular children's show on television. The idea for the show started with a conversation between Lloyd Morissette and Joan Gans Cooney at a dinner party in 1966. Morissette mentioned that his 3-year-old daughter loved to sit in front of the TV every morning, but he worried that the programming was a wasteland of options and wondered if there could be a way to make a show both educational and entertaining to younger viewers. Thus, Sesame Street was born. In the many years since, the creators have used Sesame Street to address controversial and difficult topics like diversity and the spread of HIV and AIDS. Despite some backlash over the years, the show's creators have continued to help young children process challenging topics, changing children's television forever. According to Joan Cooney, creator of Sesame Street, children's programming prior to her show consisted of
slapstick, cheap cartoons, a lot of kind of pie-in-your-face violence. It was terrible, it was a disgrace. Shows like Captain Kangaroo, though age-appropriate, had not become must-see TV. Bozo and Romper Room presented dumbed-down fun.
Lloyd Morissette's story sparked something in Joan Cooney, and she began to investigate how education could be packaged into entertaining children's shows. Cooney's opinion was that TV shows targeted towards children should prepare them not only for school but the real world as they grow up. Cooney, using her bachelor degree in education and her study television and preschool education, started the Children's Television Workshop 2 years later in 1968 with an $8 million grant. Using $4 million, the first show funded was Sesame Street, which paired Cooney's ideas with Jim Henson's Muppets. Quickly, Sesame Street became a must-see children's show with over 74 million Americans watching. Sesame Street was started in the late 1960s, around the same time as the Civil Rights Movement. In the 1960s, things were beginning to seriously change for African Americans in the United States. They were beginning to get equal rights due to the influence of Martin Luther King Jr. and his I Have a Dream speech. This led to the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Some people didn't agree with everyone becoming equal. This started protests and groups like the KKK formed. The KKK is a white supremacist group that were beginning to riot. Bombings, shootings, and beatings were extremely common as more African Americans protested against discrimination in the South. In 1964, 3 young civil rights activists were working to register black voters in Mississippi. On their way back, they were pulled over by the sheriff, who was a member of the local Klan. The sheriff held them in custody, and he and other members of the Klan killed Michael Schwerner, Andrew Goodman, and James Chaney. All throughout America, African Americans were harassed, injured, and even killed. Sesame Street creators wanted to show young children that all people could live together in peace, to teach them that everyone is the same. As Sesame Street began to get more popular, the creators felt it would be beneficial to children if the Muppets began to talk about more than just numbers and shapes. Aaliyah Wong says the creators wanted to teach
that it was okay to be different, that everyone struggles and develops in their own way.
Sesame Street began with an extremely diverse cast. David Kleeman, executive director of the American Center for Children in Media, says that
it was intentional from the beginning to show different races living together. They were conscious of the modeling that kids and parents would take away from that.
According to Lisa Gernsky,
in 1969, that was still a radical notion in some corners of the country. Here was a TV show putting African Americans on a level playing field with white characters, showing them not as servants or entertainers, but as equals.
I am black. Brown, white, I speak a different language, but I must be respected, protected, never rejected. I am God's child. I am somebody. Give yourself a big hand.
In May 1970, the State Commission for Educational Television in Mississippi banned Sesame Street. In the 1970s, Mississippi was still dealing with a large amount of discrimination. Many white children were taken out of public schools and put into private schools that only accepted white teens. Families had an issue with the cast chosen for Sesame Street, and seeing the different ethnicities living together was deemed inappropriate and offensive. One of the commissioners states that
some of the members of the commission were very much opposed to showing the series because it uses a highly integrated cast of children.
The ban was lifted 22 days later because the State Commission received a surplus of letters from people in and outside of Mississippi that felt the ban was unreasonable. One supporter of Sesame Street says,
probably more conscientious parents who will put the education of their children ahead of their personal prejudices, and these people should not be denied a choice.
Sesame Street started tackling real-world issues from the start, trying to show kids that people with different skin colors shouldn't be treated differently, and that everyone should be equal. Sesame Street creators wanted to show kids that every single person is different, and that it should never affect the way you look at or act around a person. In December 1984, 13-year-old Ryan White was diagnosed with AIDS soon after having a blood transfusion. He was given 3 to 6 months to live. White was taken out of school for a year and a half, and he begged his mother to go back once he regained his strength. When his mother finally allowed him to visit school again, he was bullied and harassed by the students he once called his friends.
It was really bad. It was, people were really cruel. People said he had to be gay, he had to done something bad or wrong, or he wouldn't have got it. Or God's punishment. We heard the God's punishment a lot, that somehow, some way he's done something he shouldn't have done, or he wouldn't have got AIDS.
When the AIDS and HIV disease had become a leading cause of death in many places around the world in the 1980s, Sesame Street wanted to show kids that people with the disease were just like everyone else. In 35% of countries, half the people living with AIDS or HIV have reported being discriminated against or abused. Many people were discriminated against due to lack of knowledge on the disease. No one was really sure how it was transmitted. People believed that they could get the disease just by being near or touching someone with AIDS or HIV. Sesame Street creators wanted to show kids that people with the disease were just the same.
I don't want to play.
Yini ungafuna ukudlala nathi namhlanje Kemi?
Because the other children at school don't want to play with me because I'm HIV positive. But mina ngidlale ngedwa. Ngoba? They say they don't want to touch me because they think I will make them sick.
Oh, but Kemi, we all know you can't get HIV just by touching someone or by being friends with them.
In 2002, the show introduced a 5-year-old Muppet to South Africa named Cammy. Cammy was HIV positive due to mother-child transmission, and she talks about how her mother died of AIDS. After airing this episode, the producers received a large amount of angry letters from critics in South Africa saying that
The show was promoting homosexuality and prematurely educating children on the disease.
Cammy was created to show people that just because someone has HIV or AIDS doesn't mean that they can't live a normal life, and they should be treated just the same as everyone else. Gloria Britton, the project manager for Cammy, says,
So many young children in South Africa who face the issues of being affected and infected by HIV and AIDS on a daily basis. We've got to help children to understand the real world that they live in.
Do you tell everybody that it is okay to hug someone who is HIV positive like me?
I sure do, Cammy.
That makes me very happy.
Give me a hug.
Cammy was supposed to make her first appearance in the United States, but 5 representatives of the House of Commerce Committee insisted Cammy's story was not age-appropriate and should not be on PBS due to how mature the topic was. Since Sesame Street creators felt it was so important to share Cammy with the world, they made a compromise to just air Cammy's episode in South Africa, where most people were affected by AIDS and HIV. Since the start of Sesame Street, more children's TV shows have not only been made to educate younger viewers, but have started to bring in controversial topics to the plot in order to appeal to all children and families. Many TV shows have developed since Sesame Street. Dora the Explorer and Go Diego Go have brought diversity into children's television by starring Hispanic characters, along with shows like Nickelodeon's The Loud House, featuring the first gay couple to appear on the network in the episode Overnight Success on June 6, 2016. Following this was an episode named Ellis for Love, where the 15-year-old character Luna confesses the crush she has on a female character named Sam. Without Sesame Street's decision to incorporate difficult topics into their show, TV for kids may not be the way it is today. In the 49 years since Sesame Street has been on television, it has educated children all over the world and prepared them for the academic and real-world challenges they will face in the future. Sesame Workshop has successfully produced not only the first educational children's TV show that talks about controversial topics, but a show that has been the most popular and loved children's television show to be accessible to all children.